Homecoming by Cynthia Voigt. Chapter 1. The woman put her sad moon face in at the window of the car. "You be good," she said. "You hear me? You little ones, mind what Dicey tells you, you hear?" "Yes, Mama," they said. "That's all right then." She slung her purse over her shoulder and walked away, her stride made uneven by broken sandal thongs, thin elbows showing through holes in the oversized sweater, her jeans faded and baggy. When she had disappeared into the crowd of Sunday morning shoppers entering the side doors of the mall, the three younger children leaned forward onto the front seat. Dicey sat in front. She was 13, and she read the maps. "Why'd we stop?" asked James. "We're not there yet. We've got food. There's no reason to stop." James was 10 and wanted everything to have a reason. "Dicey?" "I don't know. You heard everything she said, same as I did. You tell me." "All she said was we gotta stop here. She didn't say why. She never says why, you know that. Are we out of gas?" "I didn't look." Dicey wanted some quiet for thinking. There was something odd about this whole trip. She couldn't put her finger on it, not yet. "Why don't you tell them a story?" "What story?" "Cripes, James, you're the one with the famous brain." "Yeah, well, I can't think of any stories right now." "Tell them anything. Tell them Hansel and Gretel." "I want Hansel and Gretel and the witch and the candy house with peppermint sticks," Sammy said from the back seat. James gave in, without a quarrel. It was easier to give in to Sammy than to fight him. Dicey turned around to look at them. Maybeth sat hunched in a corner, big-eyed. Dicey smiled at her, and Maybeth smiled back. "Once upon a time," James began. Maybeth turned to him. Dicey closed her eyes and leaned her head back. She put her feet on the dashboard. She was tired. She'd had to stay awake and read maps to find roads without tolls. She'd been up since 3 a.m, but Dicey couldn't go to sleep. She gnawed away at what was bothering her. For one thing, they never took trips. Mama always said the car couldn't run more than 10 miles at a stretch. And here they were in Connecticut, heading down to Bridgeport, for one thing. But that might make sense. All her life, Dicey had been hearing about Mama's Aunt Cilla and her big house in Bridgeport that Mama had never seen, and her rich husband who died. Aunt Cilla sent Christmas cards year after year, with pictures of baby Jesus on them and long notes inside, on paper so thin it could have been tissue paper. Only Mama could decipher the lacy handwriting with its long, tall letters all bunched together and the lines running into one another because of the long-tailed fancy Z's and F's and G's. Aunt Cilla kept in touch, so it made sense for Mama to go to her for help. But driving off like that in the middle of the night didn't make sense. That was the second thing. Mama woke them all up and told them to pack paper bags of clothing while she made sandwiches. She got them all into the old car and headed for Bridgeport. For a third, things had been happening, all at once. Things were always bad with them, but lately worse than ever. Mama lost her checkers job. Maybeth's teacher had wanted a meeting with Mama that Mama wouldn't go to. Maybeth would be held back another year. Mama said she didn't want to hear about it, and she had ripped up every note without reading any of them. Maybeth didn't worry her family, but she worried her teachers. She was 9 and still in the 2nd grade. She never said much, that was the trouble, so everybody thought she was stupid. Dicey knew she wasn't. Sometimes she'd come out and say something that showed she'd been watching and listening and taking things in. Dicey knew her sister could read and do sums, but Maybeth always sat quiet around strangers. For Maybeth, everyone in the world was a stranger, except Mama and Dicey and James and Sammy. Mama herself was the fourth thing. Lately she'd go to the store for bread and come back with a can of tuna and just put her hands over her face, sitting at the table. Sometimes she'd be gone for a couple of hours, and then she wouldn't say where she had been, with her face blank as if she couldn't say, as if she didn't even know. Mama didn't talk to them anymore, not even to scold or sing or make up games the way she used to. Except Sammy. She talked to Sammy, but even then they sounded like two 6-year-olds talking, not one 6-year-old and his mother. Dicey kept her feet on the dash, and her body slouched down. She looked out through the windshield over the rows of parked cars to where the sky hung like a bleached-out sheet over the top of the mall buildings. Bugs were spattered all over the windshield, and the sky promised a heavy, hot day. Dicey slid still further down on the seat. Her skin stuck to the blue plastic seat covers. James was describing the witch's house, listing the kinds of candy used for various parts of the building. This was the part James liked best in Hansel and Gretel, and he always did it a little differently from the time before. Picturing the almond Hershey bar roof and the shutters made of cinnamon licorice sticks, Dicey did fall asleep. She woke covered with sweat from the hot sun pouring in through the windshield. She woke hungry. Maybeth was singing softly, one of Mama's songs about making her love a baby with no crying. "I fell asleep," Dicey said. "What time's it?" "I don't know," James said. "You've been asleep a long time. I'm hungry." "Where's Mama?" "I don't know. I'm hungry." "You're always hungry. Go ask someone what time it is, okay?" James climbed out of the car. He crossed to the walkway and stopped a man in a business suit. 12:30, James reported. "But that means I slept for more than 2 hours," Dicey protested. "I'm going to eat," Sammy announced from the back seat. He opened the bag of food and pulled out a sandwich before Dicey could say anything. "What do you want me to do?" James asked, looking into Dicey's face. His narrow little face wore a worried expression. "Want me to go look for her?" "No," Dicey said. Now what had Mama gone and done? "Sammy, give Maybeth a sandwich too. Let her choose for herself, then pass the bag up here." When everyone had a sandwich, and James had too, Dicey reached a decision. "We have to wait here for a while more," she said. "Then we'll do something. I'm going to take a walk and see if I can find her." "Don't you go away too," Maybeth said softly. "I'll be right where you can see me," Dicey said. "I'll stay on the sidewalk, see? Just like a path in front of the stores. Then maybe later we can all go into the mall and look in the stores. You'd like that, wouldn't you?" Maybeth smiled and nodded her golden head. Dicey did her best thinking while she walked. On this warm June afternoon she walked so fast and thought so hard she didn't even see the people going past her. If Mama went past, she'd say something, so Dicey wasn't worried about that. She was worried that Mama had wandered off and would not come back. "You always look for the worst," Mama had often told her. "I like to be ready," Dicey answered. If Mama was gone, but that was impossible. Was it? But if she was, what could they do? Ask for help, probably from a policeman? Would he put them in homes or orphanages? Wouldn't that be just what the police or some social worker would do? Go back to Provincetown? They could go back home. Mama hadn't paid the rent, not for weeks, and it was almost summertime when even their old cabin set off alone in the dunes could bring in a lot of money. Mr. Martinez wasn't sympathetic, not when it came to money, not when it came to giving something away for free. He'd never let them stay there to wait for Mama. They could go on to Bridgeport. Dicey had never seen Aunt Scylla, Great Aunt Scylla. She knew the name and address because Mama had made her write it down 4 times on each paper bag in case something happened. Mrs. Scylla Logan, 1724 Ocean Drive, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Aunt Scylla was family, the only family Dicey knew about. The sun beat down on the parking lot and heated up the air, so even in the shaded walkway, Dicey was hot. The kids must be hot too, she thought, and turned to get them. Mama must have gone away on purpose, but she loved them all. Why else the addresses on the bags? Why else tell them to mind Dicey? Mothers didn't do things like going off. It was crazy. Was Mama crazy? How did she expect Dicey to take care of them? What did she expect Dicey to do? Take them to Bridgeport, of course. Dump it all on Dicey. That was what Mama did. She always did, because Dicey was the determined sort. It's in your blood, Mama said, and then wouldn't explain. Anger welled up in Dicey, flooded her eyes with tears, and now she was swept away with the determination to get the kids to Bridgeport. Well, she'd do it somehow, if she had to. Mama wasn't at the car when Dicey returned, so Dicey said they'd wait for her until the next morning.